Do you need a high score on the TOEIC listening and reading test? I've got three things for you that are going to do just that. I'm Professor Wynn, author of the English Language TestPrep.com blog. Let's go ahead and get started with these three. Let's go ahead and get started with these three things that are going to help to boost your score. So, first of all, we're looking at three things that are going to help you to boost your score on the TOEIC listening and reading test. Number one, no chunking for reading. Number two, build up your collocations. And number three, be aware of conjunctive adverbs. Now, these three things are drawn from my eText 41 Things You Wish You Knew About a High Score on the TOEIC Listening and Reading Test. So, number one, let's go ahead and get started with what is chunking? So, as you know, a chunk is a big mass of something, a chunk of cheese, chunk of chocolate, but in reading, a chunk of words. Now, one of the best things that you can do, besides improving your vocabulary, a little bit more about that later, is to have a good reading habit during your TOEIC preparation. Reading is going to help you to be more familiar with grammar and vocabulary, and it's also going to help you to do well on the TOEIC reading test. And one of those techniques that you can use to help you on the TOEIC reading test is chunking. Chunking helps you to read faster, and the faster that you can read on the test, the more information you can consume, the quicker you can get an answer and move on to the next item. As you know, it's a time test, and reading faster, try to build that skill during your TOEIC reading preparation. Now, chunking involves not only reading faster, but breaking down complex text. And it doesn't have to necessarily be so complex, but breaking down text into smaller, manageable parts. Let's take a closer look. So you want to so as I mentioned, you want to use logical units. That is what you want to do. While you're reading, you want to break your text into logical units. This helps you to build comprehension. And the more comprehension you have of a text, the better you're going to understand it and be able to answer the questions. Let's take another look at chunking. So we have a sample sentence here. The red fox jumped over the log to catch the cat. Now, how would you break down this sentence into a in how would you br- how would you break down this sentence into logical chunks? What do you think? Let's take a look. So here is, well, this is my version of breaking down or chunking the language in this sentence. The thing is about chunking is everyone does it differently. However, basically you're going to arrive at the same breaking points, the same points where you break down the text so it's more manageable in smaller parts. So let's take a look at our sentence. The red fox jumped. Well, that's a logical unit. We have a red fox, and what did it do? Well, it jumped. So red fox and jumped, they go together. Next, over the log. Now, one thing about chunking is that prepositions are your friend, or more like prepositional phrases are your friends. Group your prepositional phrases together. So we have over the log. And next, we have another prepositional phrase, to catch the cat. To catch the cat. So we have the red fox jumped over the log, which all goes together. It's a complete thought, basically, that all goes together in the prepositional phrase. And then to catch the cat, another prepositional phrase. And we broke down the sentence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we broke down a sentence of about 10 words into only 3 logical units. So is it faster to read 10 words, 1 word at a time? Or is it faster to read only 3 logical units? And that's the advantage that chunking gives you. The red fox jumped over the log to catch the cat. 3 logical units, 3 chunks of language. And now you should be able to understand the sentence even better. Now, of course, this is a simple sentence, but the concept is the same. Practice this during your TOEIC preparation. Have a pencil and paper and mark with a pencil the logical units of a sentence. Chunk the sentences. Get used to chunking the sentence, and you will read faster, and that will help you build comprehension, and that is going to help you to do better on the TOEIC reading test. Number 2, build up your collocations. Well, besides having a good reading habit during your TOEIC preparation, another thing is build a vocabulary, build a stronger vocabulary. You may think your English vocabulary is strong right now, but it probably could be higher, could be stronger. Your your vo- your vocabulary could be stronger. Let's put it that way. So let's look at one aspect of that, and that is collocations. So again, we're back to chunks. Collocations are chunks of the English language that naturally go together. And if you can remember these chunks of the language, they'll help you in your speaking and your writing, and also, yes, in your reading as well, as we were just talking about, chunking words to help understand the reading text even better. Now, I have 2 examples of collocations that often confuse students, especially if you especially if your language is one of the Romance languages like Spanish, French, or Italian, Portuguese. In those languages, or at least of the languages that I know of, the word for to do or to make is one word. And so their collocations with that one word causes difficulty if that person is studying English, because in English, we divide up the words for to do and to make. And I know I sometimes when I am helping students to do better on the TOEIC exam, when it comes to collocations, there is sometimes confusion between at least these 2 types of collocations. So for example, to do. Always think of to do as task. To do the dishes, to do homework, right? These are chores. These are tasks that no one really wants to do. They collocate with the verb to do, to make. Now, when you think of to make, first of all, if it's not a task, it's going to be to make, right? And always think always think of to make as the end of a process. For example, to make your bed. right? You have to fold the quilts, you have to rearrange the pillows. It's a process. So you make a bed, not do the bed, you make the bed. And also to make a speech. You have to write up the speech, you have to type the speech, you have to create the speech. Another process to make a speech. So that those are some good ways to diffuse the confusion between the collocations of to do and to make. But bottom line, you want to make sure that you build up your strength of collocations for the TOEIC reading and listening tests. Before we move on to point number 3, as I mentioned earlier, I wrote the textbook 41 Things You Wish You Knew About a High Score for TOEIC Listening and Reading. And the 3 things we're talking about today are drawn from that textbook. You can pick up your own copy of that textbook to boost your TOEIC listening and reading score at bit.ly/41 TOEIC LRD2D. Make sure that you have this textbook to help you to study for a high score on the TOEIC listening and reading exam. And finally, our third point today, conjunctive. And finally, our third point today, conjunctive adverbs. Conjunctive adverbs? What is conjunctive? Well, think of a junction. What is a junction? A linkage. So conjunctive adverbs sometimes are called linking adverbs. And these are very helpful to know about on the TOEIC reading test, especially part 6, where you have to do sentence or text completion. So think of the conjunctive adverbs as linking ideas that are showing a relationship between two sentences. Let's take a look at an example. So here are some examples of conjunctive adverbs. However, eventually, consequently, finally, and for instance. These are only a small part of the conjunctive adverbs. But keep in mind what is happening here is the linking of the ideas in the sentences. And in the TOEIC reading, you have to complete a sentence that's missing a conjunctive adverb. For example, we can prevent the spread of COVID blank. We can wash our hands and cover our mouths. Now, multiple choice, therefore, for instance, and however. Now, which conjunctive adverb would you choose? For instance, right? Why? Because you're given an example and you're linking preventing the spread of COVID with its 2 methods of doing so, washing your hands and covering your mouth. So, therefore, therefore, you use the conjunctive adverb for instance to link the ideas in this sentence. And that would be the correct answer. So make sure that you review the conjunctive adverbs during your TOEFL. Make sure you review your TOEIC so we can get this right here. Make sure you review your conjunctive adverbs during. Make sure you can review. Let's try it again, I guess. Make sure you review your conjunctive adverbs during your TOEIC preparation. Well, we covered our 3 points: chunking for reading, building up your collocations, and number 3, be aware of conjunctive adverbs. Now, before you go, I have I guess you could say a small gift for you. And that is, if you're preparing for the TOEIC listening and reading test, get the maximum score possible. Take the test once and move on. So, to help you do that, I invite you to subscribe to my TOEIC listening and reading blog at bit.ly/TOEIC blogs. Every 2 or 3 days, you'll receive a new tip or resource that's going to help you to improve your score on the TOEIC listening and reading test. Thanks for being with me today. I really do appreciate it. And especially, I appreciate it if you're taking the TOEIC listening and reading test very soon. Now you can use these 3 things to help you to boost your score. I'm Professor Wynn, author of the English Language TestPrep.com blog. I'll see you in the next video, and good luck on the TOEIC listening and reading test.